How Klopp and Pep transformed Liverpool. The Premier League has been defined by two managers in the last decade. Not only has the league seen two teams dominate in that time, but the style of play has seen two schools of thought go head-to-head. Klopp is one of the leaders in the German school of management and coaching, while Guardiola is one of the best representatives of the Southern European style. Klopp was hired to address the coming wave of Guardiola football that was being prepared at Manchester City in the wake of Manchester United's decline. We will look at how Klopp shaped Liverpool Football Club to be a force in the Champions League and defeat a Pep-built City team. Just how has Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola transformed Liverpool? To understand Jurgen Klopp, we have to go back to his first steps into coaching and a shift of perspective in Germany at the time. When Klopp played for Wolfgang Frank in Mainz 05, German football was shifting to a 4-4-2. This was mainly influenced by the dominance of AC Milan in Europe during the 1990s. Other coaches like Helmut Gross and Ralf Rangnick were getting started on the same idea in Stuttgart. Switched to 4-4-2 and add emotion. It's a generalization, but one thing that is constant over any transition in German football is how they tried to add emotion to the game. As a culture that puts emotion at second place, they lack fire and energy to add on to their organization. This was no different. The movement over to a 4-4-2 also came along with the zonal marking system, which relied on the player's intelligence rather than the straight man-to-man marking. The extra energy garnered from this approach would be put into pressing the opposition in possession. So the system that German football was based on was more focused on how the team defended and how it pressed. These are widely considered in all schools of football to be two of the four phases of the game. The other two are counterattack and possession. So with intense pressing leading to turnovers, counterattacks were obviously the result, which became the natural progression for the pressing teams with the most energy, fire, and emotion. This underlies the modern-day approach from all of these managers that were at the forefront of German football in the change over to 4-4-2. They gradually changed this to 4-3-3 at the turn of the century, and fullbacks became more and more involved as it added to the press and could cause counter presses and overloads. Klopp was born in Stuttgart, where Gross and Rangnick were developing their ideas, but he was playing under Frank in Mainz at the end of his career. Having started his career as an attacking midfielder, Klopp moved back into the midfield before becoming a center back and right back. Jurgen became a manager in 2001, but took a few seasons to inspire the team to promotion in 2004. In 2007, Mainz ended the season being thumped 5-2 by Bayern Munich and got relegated back to the second Bundesliga. He had already made an impact on German football, and he got a move to Dortmund in 2008, where he would have the chance to work with better players and higher transfer budget. Klopp went on to disrupt Bayern Munich's dominance of the league with back-to-back Bundesliga wins from 2010 to 2012, which firmly put him in the sights of major European clubs. A few years later, Liverpool came knocking for the signature of the German giant as the football revolution started to take hold in Germany. Rangnick's Hoffenheim had started to make waves with their start in the third tier of German football. Thomas Tuchel was following Klopp's steps at Mainz, and the success of his approach was seen as a perfect fit at Anfield. Meanwhile, over in Manchester, two major things were happening. Sir Alex Ferguson had just retired as manager of Manchester United, and it was highly anticipated that it would be very difficult for them to maintain their grip on English football without him. While at Manchester City, the new Qatari owners went to FC Barcelona to hire some key members of the club's infrastructure. In 2012, it became clear what direction the club wanted to go when they made Ferran Soriano club CEO. That was quickly followed by the addition of longtime Barcelona legendary lead recruitment guy Tiki Begiristain becoming director of football. This suggested to the new owners Liverpool Fenway Sports Group that they needed an answer for what was to come. Jurgen Klopp was hired by Liverpool a year before Guardiola was signed by Manchester City, but the groundwork for these hires were put in place years before. Liverpool can see that Man City were putting together a team to best complement the great Pep Guardiola in order for him to be successful immediately, and they needed an answer to the style of football and manager if they were going to challenge for the Premier League. With Man United and Arsenal in a transition period, and Chelsea going through managers every season, it was clearly the time to build a structure that could challenge Manchester City for the next decade. If we take a high-level look at the differences between the two managers, Pep plays possession football, and Klopp puts pressure on it. This is a simplification, of course, but when defending against possession, a manager has to decide how they are going to approach it. Someone would get all the players behind the ball in a low block. With advanced defensive structure, tactics, and techniques, the Argentinian would either force a counterattack or push the team all the way back to their own goalkeeper. On the other hand, you could push the defensive backline up as high as possible, like Ange Postecoglou, in order to press the team while they kept possession. This requires a lot of energy and pressing as any time and space, for deep-lying playmakers can send the ball over the top into the space left by the high defensive line. If the defensive line is not high enough, then the team has to press too much of an area to be effective. Possession teams have added goalkeepers that were world-class with their feet in order to be able to go all the way back to them, which makes the pitch even even bigger for high lines to defend. Klopp was of the school of high lines and high presses when it came to dealing with high possession teams like Pep's. This was considered the best approach by Liverpool, not just in efficiency, but also in entertainment, and something they knew that the fans at Anfield would get behind. The reason it was entertaining was that the press was considered by Jurgen as the best form of attack. The high pressing against a possession team would create turnovers high in opposition territory, equating to easy goal-scoring opportunities. Klopp and Rangnick have been quoted as saying things like pressing is the most creative player on the team, or no team can create chances better than a press, etc., where they embrace the chaos after a turnover to strike. This would become the staple of Liverpool attacks, from Luis Suarez to Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah over the years, backed up by the high-pressing midfield. On the contrary, Pep Guardiola's possession-based teams believe in moving the ball up the field as high as possible in order to press. This means that a strict counter-pressing is employed upon losing the ball. This is also part of the German football methodology, known as Gegenpressing. But the main difference is that Pep would believe that this cannot be done without correct possession build-up. Elements known as rest defense or offensive cover are the practice of setting your team up to negate a counterattack against you when your team is in possession. These ideas are taught to Southern European and South American players through futsal. The 4 outfield players in a futsal team will consistently rotate to always have one player in the offensive cover position at all times. This is extrapolated out to 10 outfield players in order to win the ball back as quick and high as possible, to either use chaos to create another chance or simply regain possession to start again. If you don't create possession attacks correctly, then you cannot press correctly. This is the main difference between gegenpressing and using offensive cover when you have the ball. Having offensive cover can be seen to be restrictive or conservative, but having a player consistently in between the ball and your own goal allows them to act as pivots in the attack. So switching play and recycling the ball to attack somewhere else is helping by always having this defensive element in the attack. If your goal is to do that, then your only option is to apply pressure defensively to stop them from keeping the ball and recovering it in the most advantageous parts of the pitch. Another key difference that Klopp would have to account for when facing Pep is the heavy dependence on a single pivot. Guardiola has adjusted this over his career, as it is almost impossible to replicate the understanding of this position that Sergio Busquets had at Barcelona. The principle is the same though, and relies on outnumbering the opposition in the build-up phase. From set pieces like goal kicks, free kicks, offsides, and throw-ins can all trigger a possession phase. This means that the goalkeeper and the defensive midfield act like pivots to switch the play to exit. If the team tries to defend the wide positions too heavily, then spaces in the field would open up to play through the other team. The advanced tactics and general proposition of defending an entire half of the pitch means that you need an elite pressing outfit to negate this. Nobody has revolutionized the build-up element of the possession phase like Guardiola, and if you press poorly against this, you will be open for an easy break with all the space behind, which would lead to an easy goal-scoring chance. Klopp's focus on pressing and creating chances out of rock and roll football is a secondary benefit of his intensity. His ability to inspire non-press focused players like Salah, Mane, and Firmino to create chances for themselves by forcing the other team into a turnover is Klopp's main strength. Liverpool knew this, and it has proven to be the case over their fight for Premier League dominance. One issue, though, is how they play against the other 18 teams in the league. The great players that Klopp has had at Liverpool over the years have also had to be able to keep possession themselves. One misconception about Liverpool is that they don't keep possession at all, but they dominate the ball against lesser teams. The Reds can average around 60% possession over a season since he has been in charge, so they need the likes of Salah to be excellent on the ball as well. Their style in these games is to bombard the opposition with shots and crosses that are not necessarily dependent on quality of chance. The idea is to also press the opposition with the ball in order to force the defense into a mistake. This can be collectively by messing up the defensive offside line, creating space for strikers to attack with direct passes, or individually, a defender can make a mistake off the ball or on the ball if possession was lost. There is less focus on attacking quality and offensive movement like Guardiola or Arsene Wenger-based teams. Direct play is encouraged to play over the top or out wide to attacking fullbacks who are asked to stay high up the pitch. Andrew Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold have taken Klopp's possession football to the next level, but there's an emphasis on crosses when they are in possession. A cross is considered a wasteful attack for Guardiola, and the rebound that leads to a counter-attack is harder to predict. For Guardiola, and often the best type of cross by Alexander-Arnold is when the defensive line is high and they are facing their own goal, as it is less dangerous in terms of causing a counterattack against. On top of both teams actually having large amounts of possessions over a season, Klopp has also added a number of Guardiola's concepts to his team over the years, with Pep struggling to replace Busquets until he added Rodri. He used fullbacks to come inside to add superiority, but also quality to the build-up. Famously, during this time in Germany, Pep brought Bayern and German captain Philipp Lahm into a new role late in his career. This was inspirational inspirational, as he saw the intelligent and highly technical players like Lamb were not necessarily being used in their best position. Interestingly, prior to the 4-4-2 revolution in Germany, Lamb may have been used as a libero in the Germans' 3-5-2 formation. This would be a deep-lying playmaker who could drop in between the two center-backs to dictate the play. This was another style they got from the Italians per Klopp, but Pep's use of this libero, or free player in the pivot role, saw its rebirth with the German captain. Klopp started to use highly technical right-back and Liverpool local lad Trent Alexander-Arnold in more central roles and build-up play. While Trent was not used necessarily in tight, intricate passes to escape the press, he excelled in quick balls through the lines and over the top of defensive lines that reinforced Jurgen's directness. This move toward more technical players allowed Liverpool to keep up with Manchester City for the rest of the season. Adding elegant defender Virgil van Dijk meant you could not leave him free on the ball, as he would pick passes through or over defenses similarly to Trent. Arguably the biggest transformation and the one element that took Klopp's football to the next level was the addition of Brazilian goalkeeper Alisson. Spending a world record fee on goalkeeper to bring him in saw a huge improvement in ball retention and creativity from the position. Pepe Reina had been a complete ball-playing goalkeeper prior to Klopp's arrival, but when he came to the club, he had Simon Mignolet in between the sticks. Finally, the addition of Thiago to the midfield announced a desire to bring more creativity into the midfield instead of just pressing prowess. The addition of McAllister and Szoboszlai reinforced this, as they tried to spend serious amounts of money into positions toward the end of Jurgen's reign to get the best of all world in that area of the pitch. So, the steps have been taken by the Liverpool management group to address the conversion of Manchester City to the FC Barcelona style of play. They had also reinforced the team with more advanced players in all positions to dominate against the other 18 teams in the Premier League. By also adding depth in these areas, they were able to compete in cup and European competitions despite Klopp's demanding high-intensity football. So in order to get a clear idea of how this approach tackled the issues Guardiola brought to the league, we have to look at when the two managers went head-to-head. Obviously, this is always going to be a small sample size, but we can garner some things from their contests. On a macro level, their head-to-head is pretty interesting. They have faced each other more than they've faced any other managers. Klopp has only beaten Eddie Howe more times than Pep over his career. On the other hand, Pep has beaten Klopp more than any other manager Jurgen has faced. This shows Liverpool got the right man for the job as far as who to face Pep. But the key thing is that they are getting far enough in competitions to play them more regularly than any other manager. Klopp takes the lead with 12 wins, 7 draws, and 11 losses against Guardiola, who says he is the best opponent ever. There's something about the pressing and how it interrupts the possession enough to make it more inefficient over a large amount of games. Despite them being almost tied, it is far better than any other manager, with only Jose Mourinho coming close with 7 wins against Pep and the rest having 4 and under. Across their 16 Premier League meetings, Man City have scored 31 goals to Liverpool's 20. Klopp's side have averaged around 9 shots per game to City's 12, while their expected goals per game has sat at 1.02 to City's 1.64. These stats would suggest, over a large sample size, that Pep's team would come out on top based solely on expected goals. So even though Jurgen has just come out on top in terms of head-to-head matchups, Manchester City have done more damage than Liverpool over the time. Looking at other stats, in recent years, the only time they have come close in terms of goals for and against is in 2018, 2019, 2021-22, and 2023-24 seasons. Most seasons, Manchester City have the advantage of scoring quite a few more goals and letting in less over a season in the Premier League. Point totals have been interesting, as no one else has been able to come close to Manchester City, apart from Liverpool since Pep arrived. Liverpool have had a few years where they have been way off pace, falling around 20 points off Manchester City, but they've been right up next to them, well into the 90-point mark. In the 2019-2020 season, LFC managed to win the league with a staggering 18-point lead on City, which was incredible, as they scored 20 less goals. The main stat to look at, though, is trophies, and if Klopp was brought in to be the anti-Pep, he didn't quite manage it. Guardiola won 5 Premier Leagues during Klopp's time as Liverpool's manager, and Jurgen only managed the 1. Both came out of the Champions League with 1 trophy each during that time. Pep also swept up 6 cup trophies in England to Klopp's 3 between the FA and League Cup. That's more so than other managers, though, so he did enough to be considered more like Pep's passenger than the anti-Pep destroyer. Jurgen sits alongside Diego Simeone, Jose Mourinho, and Carlo Ancelotti of the managers that have gone against him and managed to win silverware. If you enjoyed this in-depth breakdown of global soccer topics, hit the like button at least. Jump in and subscribe too. It is free, and it takes time to put these things together. Much love for checking out our channel, though, and we hope you enjoyed this breakdown. All in all, Liverpool's decision to hire Klopp and his staff was a solid response to Manchester City's desire to mimic FC Barcelona in the Premier League. Despite winning the head-to-head battle after his time in Liverpool was up, Pep still took the majority of the plaudits, winning several more trophies than Jurgen. Guardiola and City were just a step ahead the whole time. The football football it brought to Anfield was super intense, and its shock and awe tactics wowed the supporters. It is going to be hard to find someone to replace him without changing what he has built and what the fans are used to. Klopp will always be a legend in Liverpool, and he showed that there is a way to play against Guardiola teams that can get results.